Hello, and welcome back to Crewcasts, an original podcast series brought to you by the Grade 11, Grade 12 drama class. My name is Kennedy, and once again, I will be your host for today's episode. Today we'll be hearing two podcasts about everyone's favorite topic, school. How can we improve our current system? Are standardized tests really the most effective way to assess a student's abilities? All this and more will be discussed in today's episode. But first, Maria will regale us with tales from her high school experience, along with some special guests. Without further ado, here is Lab Rats.
Hello and welcome to the first and only episode of Lab Rats, the science podcast you didn't think you would need but hopefully enjoy. I am your host, Maria Martinez, and today I am accompanied by three lovely guests here to give you the scoop on what class has been like since the pandemic and also to reminisce about the good old days when we could all talk to each other and give hugs. Without further ado, here's Lab Rats, episode 1. Let's just get to it and introduce everybody. Let's start with Cole. Cole, introduce yourself and tell us something fun about yourself.
Hey, I'm Cole. A fun fact about myself is that I am a certified scuba diver through Patty.
You're a certified scuba diver? That's so
Yeah,
cool. Okay.
You can probably tell
Lady.
that I'm probably missing the sun a lot.
Yeah, okay. Lady.
Oh, well, I'm Lady. My fun fact is that I'm losing sleep over homework and Animal Crossing, but it's mostly Animal Crossing.
Dang, Lady. I wish I could play Animal Crossing. I don't have the means
It's
to do that.
expensive.
Yes. Okay, Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley, and I prefer numbers over letters.
Nice. Alright, so now that we're kind of familiar with our guests and stuff, let's start with the first question. I'm going to give this one to Cole first. Things are very, very different this year. How are you feeling about your classes and stuff, being online? Is it easier, harder? What do you think?
I personally find my classes to be more challenging because, with the, schedule changes and the quadmester system, everything just seems so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we have half the number of days to cover the same amount of material, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
I found it very difficult personally,
Yeah.
and I think that also being online, it's hard to strike a work-life balance, if you know what I'm saying. It kind of feels like work is intruding into your personal life and into your personal space, because you can work anywhere in the house, and it seems like there's no escape.
Yeah, and you guys remember in chemistry how things kind of were, how everything, we were doing a lab and a lesson every day, and then we were moving on to maybe like 1 or 2 maybe lessons a day, and it was, we were getting a boatload of information each day, and it was kind of a lot. It didn't feel like a lot sometimes, but there were a lot of things that we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Lady
we're
Riley,
always
what are
busy.
your thoughts on this?
Well, just like Cole said, like the quadmester system really did us dirty somewhat. Especially now, like with this quadmester, with biology and calculus, I feel like it should have been something like a less, like, especially now that's like the third quadmester and it's our last year, I feel like I should have been more, like, I don't know, more, what's the word? Like, I'm both overwhelmed and underwhelmed for some reason.
Yeah.
Both of my teachers are really understanding, so I feel like it's more of my attitude towards it. And just like what Cole said, like I find it difficult to like focus because I'm in my room. There's so many distractions and I don't know how to control sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with you on the whole overwhelmed and underwhelmed thing. Honestly, I feel like there's so much that we need to be doing, but there's so little we need to be doing at the same time. It feels like we have so much time because we're just at home in our rooms, like you said, but at the same time there's also just so much work to do, but there isn't at the same time because we can't have so much work to do because that's just not possible for us to do, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Riley, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with Cole and Lady. I think it's definitely very hard to sort of assess how much work you have because we're so used to all the workloads that we would have on a semester schedule that having, we only have 2 things to do today as opposed to the 4 we would normally have, it seems weird to have less, but yet each assignment is typically quicker and due sooner, so you have to, like, it's hard to sort of base your schedule in the same way because you can't.
Yeah, for sure. All right, those are some nice thoughts, guys. So let's get on to the next question. Lady, like I said before, things are really different before 2020. What's something you miss from how classes were
I miss
before?
running down the hallways and just hugging people. That's my biggest
Oh,
thing.
I do too.
I like seeing people in the hallways and being able to just run up and hug them. And I'm relatively shorter than everybody, so they all just lift me up in the air. And now that like we're in like this situation, I feel like the amount of germs just interacting between us is like making me self-conscious
The
now.
amount of germs.
How am I supposed to recover from this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss
get
seeing
what
people.
you mean, man. I miss like, in the mornings when we'd all hang out in the
In the
triangle and stuff like
triangle.
that. I remember just walking to the triangle from my bus, seeing almost everybody there because some people obviously we're all getting there at different times. Yeah, so I miss just like, hanging out with everybody in the morning and stuff like that because it was so much fun all the time just being able to walk in, see everybody smiling, give people hugs, and being able to talk to each other, hanging out in the music room, but being able to talk to each other without having to like stand so far apart and yell at each other because we're far apart and we can't really hear each other through our masks, Seeing people's
Hang out in
faces.
the music
I miss your
room.
guys' faces. Your guys' faces are nice. All right, Cole and Riley, what are your thoughts on this? What are things you guys miss?
I think that the
Seeing
thing that
people's
I miss
faces.
most is kind of I don't know if downtime's kind of the word, but kind of the time after
Yeah.
the lesson in each class, because I think that that's when all the craziest
Yeah,
things would
for
happen,
sure.
right? And I think that those kinds of moments are, for me, the most memorable. Like, some person would just be a goofball and we just goof off, and then also it's kind of an opportunity for people to learn and to digest the information that was taught after each
It's
lesson
nice
as
to
well,
kind of just
right?
sit in class,
I think that
Yeah,
I think that those moments, I think, were really memorable to me and also really valuable when I was trying to study, because
unless we were in chemistry
Yeah,
and
like-
in grade 11, remember how how chaotic the class would get sometimes. I felt so bad for our teacher because she must have had such a huge headache because of all of us. Just one of her and 33 kids that are kind of just running around, running about, screaming at each other, all that jazz,
Yeah.
Really, what about you?
Some kids definitely can
Yeah, so
take
that's
that
what I
to
miss
the
the most.
extreme and be very, very disruptive. But I definitely agree that there's that sort of downtime, as Cole called it, is really, really important because especially now, really, all that has sort of been stripped away from school. It's just because of the way it has to be. It's get in, learn, get out, and you don't have time to stop and chat or hang out or do anything like that. Like, even just passing people in the hallways just doesn't happen anymore because you have a dedicated staircase to use, dedicated door, dedicated pathway to. The only thing really that you can change is just quickly going to the bathroom. But that, yeah.
I find that now that okay, so there's a difference between when you're in school and then when you're at home, right? So downtime, usually when you're at home, sometimes you really just don't take that time to be productive because we're at home, we can just do whatever really, and no one's just gonna know unless we have to do a test or something, right? But then when you're at school, it's not like downtime can be used to just, kind of hang out with everybody, even if you are studying, and just, kind of just vibe where you are. Right now, we can't interact with one another really at all, pretty much. And it's kind of sad because, like, I don't know, it was really fun, like you guys were saying,
You know what I
Yeah,
also
I
miss?
miss that. What do you miss, lady?
Labs.
Labs!
Oh my
I
gosh,
miss doing labs with
one
one
vivid
another a
lab
lot.
like that's ingrained in my brain was where you guys just spend the entire lab time just arguing about the tortoise and Achilles.
No, we're not. No.
That
It's
just
the
brought
tortoise
up
and
so
the hair
much.
thing, right?
Yeah, something like that. Like that just brought so many memories. Like just stuff like the things we do during labs. I miss that because now labs is like one person does it, another person records it.
Yeah.
That's online. Like
Yeah, another
Yeah.
person just watching.
Just watching.
Honest to God, I appreciate the fact that we get to do labs a lot because it's good experience and it's kind of like it's a whole unique thing where we have to learn how to do these things ourselves, even if we do
Making
have
soap.
a teacher with us and stuff, right? So
Soap.
we got to watch making soap, lady, because
That's
we
true.
weren't in school that day, but it must have been nice, honestly.
You made the smell of glue stick.
I made glue stick smell, and I loved that. That was actually it was a little bit of a higher pressure lab because we were working with some slightly
Dangerous.
slightly more dangerous chemicals. Of course, like we weren't in any real danger or anything like that because we were all following procedures correctly and whatnot. But I think we were starting the lab, and I would just remember being so nervous because I'm not clumsy necessarily, but sometimes I can be. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Where you're
like,
worried that you're going to mess something up and you really just don't want to.
I guess the safest lab was watching water boil.
Watching the lab where we watched water boil.
You know
That was a good
Good
one,
memories.
you
Good
know.
memories.
Good memories. There was the one, if you guys remember at all, there was the one lab I think in either grade 10 or grade 11 where we did it was the titration lab. So we did that in grade 11, remember?
And 12, I think. Yeah.
We did I think the same thing pretty much in grade 11 and grade 12, but it's okay. I just remember doing that lab in grade 11 and all of us just standing around the one little beaker just waiting for it to turn while somebody was stirring. I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody, and we were all just like, is it supposed to be like this? Just the first time. There's a beauty to the first time kind of doing labs, you know, where you don't know how things are really supposed to go. And so you're kind of just trying to look for something. And if you don't know exactly what it is, and it's not something that's like really obvious, you know, like a very distinct color change, you're kind of thinking, am I doing this right? Or did I mess up horribly? And am I going to get like a horrible mark because of this? Like what
That's
is going
the fun
on,
times
you know?
about labs.
Yeah, fun times. Okay. So, yeah.
I think that another thing about the labs is, I think that a lot of the appeal, at least in previous years, in my experience, for these labs is that, like, it was collaborative,
Yeah.
right? It was always like in a group setting. People would wander around the classroom.
Yeah.
And again, like it was kind of like this social time where people could interact with one another, and
Yeah.
I think that those kinds of interactions just made you feel
Yeah.
more human in the very busy workflow of the day or in the week even. I think that a lot of that is now missing because everyone is isolated to
Their own space.
one
Yeah.
station, yeah, but also like you can't collaborate quite as much at your station because we're doing labs partially
Yeah.
virtually and your partner's still
Yeah.
all online.
I miss
right?
that.
So I think that having those
Yeah.
extra hands and having that social time, I found was really
Yeah.
important. And I mean, it's just not the same. Even if your lab partners are helping you virtually, like there's a virtual interface between you and the other person that separates you two.
Yeah, it's not
right?
exactly the same experience because the person who's online is kind of just watching online, and you can't really confer about results in real time. You know what I mean? Because they don't exactly see what's
Yeah,
going on.
and I also found that. Yeah, exactly. I think that also like there's sometimes having an extra head and an extra
Yeah.
pair of hands is really helpful, and I just kind of feel like with these labs nowadays, everything is pushed up against
Yeah.
the wall because you're doing everything yourself as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I like that titration lab that Maria mentioned. When we did it in grade 11, it was one person stirring, one person dripping, one person recording,
person-
everyone sort of doing a different task and all working together. Whereas now, doing it in grade 12 or similar labs at the very least, you have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, well, that's on you. No one else can really help you
Yeah,
in that
it's so
regard.
much fun. Just you're watching something drip drop by drop, and then you're kind of just you're not really stirring with one hand. You're kind of I don't remember what I was doing. I don't think I could stir. I think I had to hold my actual beaker with my hand and like kind of swish it around as I was going, right? And that was just fun. Oh, and then we had to, oh shoot, what are those things called? You know, the thing, it kind of looks like the things we use to measure.
The burette or like the pipette or something.
Yeah, the pipettes. Oh my gosh, learning how to use that was fun. But man, I really wish that we had many people working, because that was just a lot to do in one day, where we had to measure using the pipettes, and we had to get like the exact measurements, watch the lines, and then we had to set up the burette and stuff like that, right? Am I using the right terminology? I don't know, but I'll cut that out later. Just having to set that all up yourself, having to set up all the measurements and stuff like that, and having to watch it drop by drop is just, it's a lot for one person, you know?
100%.
Yeah. But you know what? We get to do it, so I still appreciate that very much. It's something we really can't take for granted, because... Alright, so we're reaching the end of the podcast, which means we're at our final question. What is a moment that's just really stuck with you guys over the past 4 years of being in science class? You know, it could be just anything. Something that was funny, something that was inspiring, you know? Something that's just really stuck with you over these years, you know? And you think will stick with you over the next whatever years, you know? Let's start with Riley.
One thing that I can say I still distinctly remember, and probably will for a while, is it was when we were online. I believe it was a lab day, because we were in smaller groups, and I was with Lady, and every so often our teacher would walk by wearing this certain distinctive sweater with various patterns on it, and I could sort of see it in the back, and I kept asking Lady to ask him, but obviously she was busy doing the lab and other things, so it eventually, because I had said it so many times, eventually it became this sort of running joke that he would show us this sweater whenever he could.
And then Riley would just always comment.
Talk about the sweater.
Just comment, nice sweater.
Oh, what was on the sweater, Riley? What's on the sweater, guys? Someone wanna describe the sweater to the audience?
There's a water bottle in the front. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, it's our new.
Yeah, so I think it's black. There's a water bottle on the one side. There's a caution sign, and there's something on the back, and I can't remember.
I think my favorite thing about this sweater is that I accidentally recreated it in Among Us when we played on the last day of the Quadmester. Remember, guys, I did that by accident because I was thinking, yeah, this is fun. I can wear a caution sign as a hat, and also I'd like to do this, you know. And it was just fun because I honestly didn't notice until somebody pointed it out. And yeah, that was just a nice thing. What about Lady and Cole? What are some things that you would like to share about?
I think the one thing that was really memorable was in chemistry class last year. Riley decided that he would dress up as a gigantic inflatable teddy bear for Halloween, and we had a dance competition that day. And
yeah, as we usually do.
It was so funny because everyone was doing these dances for the competition, and then Riley decided that he wanted in, and he just went full send, and it was just so funny just watching him. And I remember looking at the science teacher, and I don't even know what was going through her head. I don't know if it was disappointment or something, but
disappointment.
I don't know, but her facial expression in that moment was just so good.
I just remember in that exact moment that Riley walked into the classroom in his costume, everybody just looked at it.
Yeah.
That was such a nice costume, Riley.
And that costume was very big and very hard to see out of as well. So that just made it even more fun to do all the dance moves, because at one point it looked like I just fell over, but no, I was trying to. But everyone, are you okay?
I remember you were trying to do
I have all this floof.
You were trying to do this finisher move, and then it just looked like you fell over. And I knew that you were fine inside, but it was just it was just so funny, yeah.
Boys, okay, boys. Lady.
Well, it was last year in biology class. We had plant presentations. That was,
Yes, it was.
So mine was cinnamon, and I believe yours was lavender, right? So you made cookies as your
Snickerdoodles?
sample, and I made what to call it,
Dude, those were
snickerdoodles, and
so
it was
good.
such a hit. Like, and then everybody else like brought like sugar canes and sunflower seeds. Like, it was just such a hit between everybody
Yeah.
that we just decided
Oh
to
my
just
gosh.
do a whole biology food party again.
Yeah.
So, like aside from learning stuff, like learning about
No,
cinnamon, learning
honestly,
about
like
lavender,
having us
we also
bring like samples like that of
got food in the
food was a
process. So that was really fun.
quite a good motivator to get us wanting to learn about these things, right? Like we could just snack while the person was talking about their presentation and stuff like that, right?
Some person also brought. Sorry, I don't know if I am kind of jumping in here.
Yeah, that was good.
I remember someone bringing blue cookies, and I don't
I
remember
don't
who
remember.
it was, but
That was a different time, and that was me.
yeah, I know,
just
but
food
it
dye, I
just
just
looks
wanted to be
so
fun.
It was
funny.
just
I don't know,
food
like
dye. It was
Yeah,
just
they
food
looked like
dye.
little
There was
it
dinosaur
looks
eggs,
like
you
little
know?
dinosaur eggs, yeah, and it also looks
I
like
miss
something that could be unhealthy for you, just full of chemicals.
I'm Cole.
And it was just really
Yeah.
great that like people
We all
like
put our
took the
hearts into
time
Yeah.
to actually
for
make
the most
them.
part. But yeah,
You know,
no, I miss
that was
being able
good.
to share food and
But
stuff
yeah.
like that with you guys, and just have like moments like that. Even at lunchtime, just being able to have fun and stuff like
Snack
that. I
time
just
in the
remember
back of
very
the class.
distinctly having lunch right after science class in grade 10, and everybody would just run to get food from the
Lunchtime,
caf. Yeah, that was fun.
I miss lunches.
I miss lunches. Yeah. I think for me, one of my I've never
I miss
told anybody
lunch.
this before, but the very first thing that our teacher showed us in grade 9 science class, I think, was, remember that one lab where we had to ignite something or something like that, and there was just this really bright light that was produced that she told us that we couldn't look like directly at. I don't know if you guys did this in your classes, but I know that I did this, that my teacher, yeah.
I think I remember
we
doing
did
it at
in
some
grade 10.
point.
It was the first lab we did in grade 10, but I remember seeing it in grade 9 and thinking,
Yeah.
dang, this is what I want to do with my life. Just this kind of stuff. Like, I like other subjects and stuff like that, but there's just this super cool thing about studying science and whatnot and doing labs that there's just something about it that I just love so much, you know?
Something about looking at bright lights.
No, something about doing labs, Cole. Were you listening? Science class, experiments, labs, just talking
science.
about how things
Experiments.
function, Like, there's just something about it that's just nice and satisfying.
Yeah, labs are. I think that labs are probably some of the things that are most memorable to me as well.
Yeah. Also because I think we also just had, like, there was a lot of time for us to connect with one another when we were doing labs with each other, As we were talking about before, I think, like, before on the podcast. But, yeah, so thank you guys for sharing your stories, and thank you so much for being here. That is all for today's episode. And I will see you all next time. Yeah.
Yes,
I will
thank
see
you.
you all
Thank
through
you,
this
everyone.
grade, my friends. Goodbye.
See ya.
Oh no.
Goodbye.
See you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Next, we have Aidan and Noah, who are discussing our current school system and the ways in which it can improve to better support the education and well-being of all students. Here is School versus Students.
Hey, this is Noah. And this is Aidan. And you're listening to School versus Students, Episode 1. Let's start off with grades. What is what do you think of like our current grading system?
It's trash. It's complete trash. I have a lot to say about this topic. It's quite a hefty one, if I do say so myself. Let's start off with standardized tests. What are your thoughts on standardized tests? I mean, I'm not too fond of them. I don't know about you.
Well, here's the thing. For standardized tests, like not everybody could actually benefit from a standardized test. And that group of people that can is pretty small because for the first thing, it is that a lot of students can't they can't consume that information, the information given in class, and kind of just put it out on a piece of paper during the standardized test in that format. Like, do you know what I mean, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Okay.
like,
I want to kind of. Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna tie this in with Finland, and as you guys will hear in this episode, we will be referring to Finland a lot, because Finland, in case you didn't know, has the top education system in the world, the world's best education system. No country in the world has a better education system than Finland. The Finns know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's a lot of reasons behind it. A lot.
yes. First one that I'll start off with is that in the upper secondary education in Finland, which would sort of be like the equivalent of our grade 11, 12, there's two different types of education that students can choose to go into. They can go into general education, and in general education, you only need to write one matriculation exam at the end of high school or secondary school. And if you do well on this one exam, you can get into the university that you want to get into in Finland. And if you take the other path, which is called the vocational education path, you don't have to write an exam at all, because that path is geared more towards trades and other jobs that don't benefit as much from the academics of school as much as they do from jobs they experience. So that's honestly amazing. I don't know about you, but I would love to go through all of high school and not have to write a single standardized test or exam. Like, that would be amazing. I mean,
yeah, like the thing is though, as students, we're geared to just do well on the standardized test and just like forget about the rest. But the thing is, like, that really doesn't prepare us for real life. Like, especially if you want to go into trades, like college, for example. Like, you don't need all the information that we consume on our standardized tests. During our classes, and then spit on our standardized tests. There's just no point.
exactly.
There's just none. Like, especially like for if you go to university, it makes some sense. But again, like, what's the point of just learning the information just for a sake of kind of spitting it out on that standardized test and just forgetting it?
Exactly. School, the sad truth is that school teaches us to do things with the motivation of getting a high number. Our greatest motivation is the number that will appear on a piece of paper known to us as our report cards. And after we get that number, we're done with that information. We move on to the next set of classes, and we forget about nearly everything we learned in the course.
No,
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's exactly why when you return to the next grade, they literally go through a summary of what you've learned. Because literally everybody forgot what they learned a year before.
Exactly. I mean, like, if you take a step back and think about it, right? Like, some of the things we learn in school are truly, truly interesting, even if they don't necessarily apply to our real life, because that's a common argument and a very valid one for school, is that a lot of the things that we learn, particularly in classes like math, do not apply to our real lives. And often that is the truth. So there could be a lot of curriculum cut down there. But the thing is, a lot of the things we learn in school, even if they don't apply to our real lives, they're truly interesting. Classes like science, for example, even if we don't pursue science post-secondary, the things we learn in science are truly, truly, truly interesting. But school takes away all the wonder that comes with learning these things, and they just jam in too much material in too little time, and takes away the wonder of learning these things, and it distracts our brains to the single motivation of earning these numbers that we've come to value way too much.
Honestly, yeah, like even though like sometimes in bio classes, I just sit there, I'm like, I want to enjoy this. Like I genuinely like learning this. And like sometimes some of my friends would be like in that class, they would be like, why are you like not focusing that much on grades? But I'm like, for me, it's not about the grades. Like I genuinely want to have fun with this material. Like I like learning this. Like that's what I want to do in my life. So if the only motivation I have is like marks, then why would I do it? Like I mean, obviously, if I'm interested in the material, I'll study it. I'll eventually, hopefully, I'll get a good mark in it. But for me, the marks is not the biggest thing because I want to actually like have fun. That's like that. Those are my prime years in my life, right? And this is when I could have the most imagination. This is when I could have the most fun, especially in courses kind of take that fun away. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too cookie cutter. It's too robotic. It's too I don't know. It's just they take away our the wonder of learning, like I said, and they distract us and they try to make us
Like
like
wonderless.
they we it's like eating when you're sick, right? We eat, we digest the information, but we have the flu and we puke it back up onto these multiple choice sheets and we forget about it. That's it.
I
We
love
get the number, we're done.
Yeah. And also, here's the thing. Not all students have the exact same opportunities, even in the same class with the same teacher. Like
Exactly.
there's income inequality, and literally for some reason, not many people, not many school systems consider that. Like income inequality is a big thing. Like for example, some students can't afford a tutor. Some students don't have time for a tutor because they're working. Like I
Hmm.
personally experienced that. Like, I mean, I can get a tutor. Like my I don't know, but I don't have time for it. So
Yeah.
that kind of I don't know, maybe that applies to you, but yeah, that's just a lot of students kind of like for standardized tests, like there are certain tutors that could prepare them for that. But for the other part of students that don't have the money, don't have the time for a tutor, they will not be as prepared, regardless if they study or not.
Exactly. And that leads us into our next topic for this episode, which is homework. Just saying the word makes me want to puke. I hate homework. It's awful.
Yeah. It kind of just like there's so many things that are not considered there. Like so many, and it's insane how any school system goes through with somebody was just like, let's just create a system where students would take a system where they go to school for 6 hours, where they literally sometimes like the 6 hours in school not are not used efficiently. Then they come home and then they study for another 3. That's 9 hours. The only thing that the things that are not considered are just to name a few is the situation at home, people working at different jobs, and there's so many more. There's like conflicts, um, people working many hours. Yeah, just I don't understand how somebody would go through with that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Um, and it's crazy because teachers and parents alike often have this association with homework. It's this beautiful thing, right? It's like, yes, our child has had 6 productive hours. Well,
They're not
somewhat
productive. They're like
productive,
semi-productive.
semi-productive, let's say. 6 semi-productive hours at school. Let's give them 3 more, or however many more, maybe even more than 3 hours of homework, right? And they're wondering why their child is suffering with depression and anxiety, and there could be other causes for these mental issues, but I'd argue that school is one of the main ones.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, like at the beginning of this school year, I hardly had any motivation outside of school to do things. Like I would spend all my energy on my schoolwork, my homework, and then I would hardly have anything left. And I would experience these feelings of depression and anxiety more severely and more frequently than before.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, about going back to the topic of like just 3 hours of homework, nobody really considers the fact that most of the time the students procrastinate. Like procrastination is
Yeah.
a real thing, and we can't. No student could just sit there for 3 hours and just study nonstop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just do 3 hours of studying, and then add another 2 to 3 hours of procrastination.
Mm-hmm. That takes up like so many hours of the day, so many hours. If you have a 6 hour school day, and then like you said, 3 hours of studying, and then at least another hour of breaks or procrastination, whatever you want to call it, sometimes it's necessary. So school really ends up taking like at least 10 hours of our day, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and the
It's
thing is,
so unfair.
yeah, like that material could be done in 30 minutes. Most of the material we've learned in grade 11, some people say, like some teachers, they're like, grade 11 is the hardest year. Well, sometimes, like right now, even like during COVID, right, we do 2 lessons a day. Even with the 2 lessons a day, we could fit them in like 45 minutes. That could be
Yeah.
100%. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's ridiculous. Like 45 minutes, then let's do realistically to for everybody to understand it, let's just say an hour or an hour and a half, right? So an hour and a half times that's two, because right now we were only having 2 courses,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's 3 hours instead of 9, instead of 10, as you said.
It's crazy. It's crazy how much more efficient and how much less time we could use towards our education if we just cut down material, if we were more efficient, if we cut out things that were unnecessary, like all these in-class activities, and just stuck to the more important stuff, right?
Like,
we could save so much time.
yeah, and like going back to Finland, they don't have homework.
Yeah.
They do, but like very little.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like why doesn't our school system just look at it and just be like, yeah, maybe, just maybe we should change that?
Yeah. I mean, going back to Finland, of course, Finland is the perfect model in our world for how we should model our school system in Canada, because like parents and teachers, like I was saying before, they have this association that the more homework is equals the better, the more studying, the better they'll do on tests, the better off they'll be, and all this meaningless stuff. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay,
No, I totally understand what you mean. Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that there's like this opposite association, and a lot of parents would be surprised to learn this, but it turns out that Finland actually only assigns a maximum of half an hour of homework a day for students, yet they're outperforming every other country in the world in education. And they've been proven time and time again, despite the lack of homework, despite the lack of standardized testing, despite the lack of all these things that our education system in Canada is built upon, they're outperforming everyone. They're outperforming the US consistently in math, reading, and science without loads of homework, with shorter school days, and without standardized tests.
Yeah.
What does that say?
Yeah, and like the thing is, like the system of standardized testing of homework is adopted around the world, everywhere. It is it's considered normal to have a bunch of homework. Like nobody
Yeah.
thinks about the fact that all this homework, all this late studying could lead to depression. Like it's just, do people not think about those things? Like there's suicides,
Mhm.
all those things, and nobody thinks about those things. Well,
Not to mention, even the man that invented standardized testing, he himself said that these tests are too cruel to be used. If someone were to, okay, let's take someone like Elon Musk, right? If
yeah,
him and NASA, SpaceX, whoever, I don't know too much about all this space stuff. It's interesting, but I need to learn more about it. But if people were to design a rocket and they were to say that this rocket is unsafe, right? Let's say they do a test run for the rocket and
Mhm.
it explodes on Earth's surface. Are they going to try to send that rocket to space? No. They're going to redesign the rocket, rebuild it, and retest it to make sure it is safe and effective before they launch the rocket into outer space. The same can be applied to our school system. The guy who invented standardized testing, he himself said that these tests are ineffective, are unnecessary, and are quite literally cruel. So if the person who, just like the rocket, if the person who invented this concept said that it is not a good thing to pursue, why would you then pursue that? Why has it gone this far?
business.
Business. Yeah, like we were talking about before, school is a business. Do you want to elaborate upon that?
Yeah, yeah. So here's the thing. Um, if we look at any section of business, like medical system, engineering, anywhere, everything is business, right? Literally everything. The only issue is the fact that our school, like the school system, college, university, high school, those are the things that teach us how to become a better student, how to study, how to acquire and teach us the information that is needed for those businesses. If that itself is a business, then the fundamentals can't function. Because how can we learn something if the priority of that institute is to make money? It just doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
It's like you can't make money off an essential thing. It is so essential that if a country doesn't have a good educational system, it will fail.
Yeah.
I just don't
It's
understand that.
it's going back to what you said before, ridiculous. The word ridiculous could quite literally sum up this entire episode and our reviews towards all these flaws about our school system.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing is, I know I can't relate to this as much now due to the pandemic because I used to have a lot of extracurriculars and sports
Yeah.
and volunteer positions. And when you have all these extra commitments outside of school, it becomes much harder to focus on homework. And if someone's a type of student who likes to do all their homework and study for hours for tests on top of working a job, providing for themselves or their families, or taking care of a younger sibling, cooking, cleaning, all these things that they need to do outside of school for themselves and their families, that takes away time from schooling, right? And then they have less time to do their homework, or they do the homework and they sacrifice sleep, and then they don't function as well. They run into health problems, and their brain does not work as well for school.
Yeah. And that leads us into our final topic. The start and end time of school. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I have some thoughts on this one. So I'm gonna spit some facts here, some science, um, because this is something that I've done my own research on, and I find this really interesting. So, and this is the kind of stuff that we should be learning about in school, honestly. If we learn about this in school, that would be amazing. But you know what? Teachers don't want to teach this to us because it goes against the school system that they work for. And it's not part of the curriculum. Actually, I shouldn't blame teachers. I should blame the government for not teaching us this as part of the curriculum. Anyway, so when teenagers turn 14 years old, on average, around the age of 14, the brain enters a state called delayed sleep phase syndrome, or DSPS for short. And basically, what this entails is it's a developmental disorder in which the brain secretes melatonin, which is the chemical that we need to fall asleep. Well, not need, but it helps us fall asleep at night. The brain secretes the majority of melatonin later at night than younger children and adults and seniors. Teens naturally need to sleep the latest because of the way the teen brain works. Noah, you and I are both in DSPS right now. Who would have known? And so our brains and brains of teenagers all over the world alike, our brains emit or secrete melatonin, or the majority of melatonin, between the hours of, on average, 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. That is the optimal window for us to sleep, right? So because of this, there is scientific evidence now that backs up why teens go to bed usually between the hours of 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Now let's take the average of that, right? Let's be somewhere in the middle at midnight, okay? Average high school student falls asleep at midnight. And for our school start time is precisely 8:23 a.m. Now, why 23? Why they didn't just round it, I'm not sure. 8:23 a.m. For our purposes, though, let's just round that to 8:30. Our school start time is 8:30, and I know for me, because of that, in my situation, I have to wake up at 7 a.m. to go to school. But I know a lot of students who take buses because I get a ride to school. A lot of students who take buses or they're farther away have to wake up even earlier than 7 a.m.
Yeah.
But let's use 7 a.m. just to be generous, right? Student falls asleep at 12, wakes up at 7. That's only a 7-hour sleep. Now, medical experts recommend that teenagers sleep between 8 to 10 hours a night. How many high school students do you think are currently getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night on weeknights?
You know what? I don't think any. You know why? Because what about work? What about family issues? What about younger siblings? What about extracurriculars? What about those students that don't wake up at 7 a.m.? What about those students that wake up at 8:30 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just those those things that are not considered. Like, those things affect the students a lot. Like, personally, like, I go to work at like for like, I don't know, 3 times a week or 4 times a week. Like,
Yeah.
I can't physically go to work at like 4. Yeah, it's around 4. But the thing is, before that, most of the days I have extracurricular stuff. So that's from like 3 to like 4. So I leave the meeting early at like around like 3:50. I get to my work. I work until like 8. Then I come home at like 8:45 or 9. And then I have to catch up on my social life. I have to like take a shower. I have to eat. I have to do my homework. I have to walk my dog. I have to like I have to have a hobby, right? Like everybody should have a hobby, something that makes them happy. So how is that possible? How can I go to sleep at 10, 11, 12? My homework takes like 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours sometimes.
Hmm.
Like I don't know. What about you? Like, do you go? What time do you go to bed?
I go to bed typically on school nights at 11 p.m. But sometimes it is later because of homework, and sometimes I just have trouble falling asleep, and sometimes I don't know. Like there's always exceptions here and there. I have it better than a lot of people right now, I would say. I have less things to do than a lot of people, less commitments outside of school, so more time for me to have to do other things and more time for me to sleep. But I know that so many people right now are suffering because they either have to sacrifice their free time, hobbies, their social life, their academics because they're having trouble getting their homework done, which they shouldn't even have to do in the first place. And they're either suffering any of those things, or they're suffering because they're not sleeping as much. It's like they're sacrificing sleep or school and their social life and everything else they have to balance within the day. There's not enough time in the day for us to have a complete balance of all these things and get enough sleep.
Yeah,
And there is such a simple solution to this problem.
yeah,
My
just
preposition, back to what I was saying before, um, we take the 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. melatonin secreting time frame for teens. We take the time that the average teen goes to sleep. It's somewhere between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Meet in the middle at midnight. Falls asleep at midnight. Average high school student. Let's say they sleep 8 hours. Okay, let's go to the low end of the optimum range.
yeah.
Teen sleeps from midnight to 8 a.m. Gets an 8 hour sleep. Awesome. What time would the school start for this teen if they wake up at 8 a.m.? Maybe
9,
9:30,
9,
10?
10, yeah.
Because I know
Like
for me, I live relatively close to my high school, and it's only about a 15-minute drive, and I don't take the bus because I don't need to. And I feel bad for students who do take the bus because it drops them off about a half hour early. And so I get to school and my class starts about an hour and a half after the time I wake up. Now, it might be longer for some students who take the bus or who live farther away. So let's add another half hour in that scenario. So again, fall asleep at midnight, average student. Wake up 8 a.m. School starts at 9:30 to 10 a.m. That is not the case for us.
yeah,
Our school starts at about 8:30. And there are so many problems, more problems than people realize, that originate just from this school start time.
yeah. And the thing is, like, when you enter high school, how many students are like sitting there, like, on the sides of like the hallways sleeping?
Yeah, I know.
It's like,
Before the pandemic, I remember going to school and seeing people asleep in the halls. I
yeah,
mean,
just to catch a fuse, like it's just you can't have that. Like everybody has to be awake, you know? Like that's how the school system envisions it, right? Everybody has to be
mhm.
awake, already happy for school. How can you be happy if you had like 3 hours of sleep?
Yeah. And I want to take this back to academics, grades. Okay. Even if the grade system doesn't improve, even if we just focus on this first, this concept, this simple idea for school start and end times, right? And let's just leave grades to the side. The whole issue of grades we discussed earlier, and we will discuss more in depth in future episodes, is a whole different uh, challenge and a whole different thing to fix. But let's say we want to improve students' grades, right? one of the ways to do that is by delaying school start times, because studies have been done. Even if the like let's say even the government is like a bunch of robots, and they don't really care about students' mental health and well-being, which I'm sure they do, they just haven't acted on it as much as they should. Let's say they're just focusing on how students' grades can improve. One key way to do that, as studies have shown time and time again, is by delaying school start times even an hour. So even if our school start time was to change from about 8:30 to 9:30, imagine the difference it would have. Not just on our mental and physical well-being, but also on our academics, right? The whole
Yeah,
idea is that they want us to do well in school,
yeah.
right?
And imagine if they take the homework away then too.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine that.
Oh yeah, it would be amazing. And that all comes down to, again, being efficient during school time.
Yeah. Like our school system is really inefficient. We're not doing anything. Like it's insane.
And guess what? Let's bring this back to Finland once again. I know you guys are going to be sick of the word Finland because we said it so much this episode, but man, they know what they're doing. Like, I know you guys think it's too good to be true. Do your own research on this. Finland has shorter school days than we do in Canada. What else do I have to say? I mean,
There's not much you could say, because like it's just a clear example, and it's just the structure is clear there. The school is not a business. It's not the main idea of school is not to create a business, not to create an efficient business, but to create an efficient studying place.
yeah,
So yeah,
exactly. All right. We covered a lot in this episode. We talked about the grade system. We talked about homework, and we talked about school start and end times. I hope you all enjoyed. This has been School versus Students, episode 1.
thank you for listening, and don't forget to tune in for the future episodes.
There's definitely a lot to think about when it comes to the way high school operates and the toll it can take on students. But by giving students a platform and allowing their voices to be heard, slowly but surely, I believe some great changes can be made. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you back for our next and, unfortunately, our final episode of Crewcasts, in which our students will be making their voices heard and exploring the ups, downs, and inside outs of life as a teenager.